Do you think that we're products of our environment? Like, if you'd stayed in Maryland or New York, did you still have the same conservative leanings that what you have now?
Yes, absolutely. Because my conservative leanings have nothing to do with being in the deep south. I'm a pragmatic kind of guy, Chris, and certain things just make sense. And I was raised by conservative parents, and I was raised, during a time, of course, I was born around the time that Kennedy was president. And so, I paid a lot of attention to what was going on, even at a young age. I'm a voracious reader, and I love history. It's my absolute number one subject matter. And so I absolutely believe that I would, because it's not so much a matter of cultural stuff for me. I'm a physical conservative. And of course, what I mean by that is I pay attention to the economics of it all. And of course, my cultural beliefs are faith based, and they have nothing to do with my geography. They have to do with the fact that I am a Christian, and that I serve the Lord, and I'm in a relationship with the Lord. And so most of my beliefs stem from that.
Okay, talking about the social part of it, Christianity. Do you side with the religious right today? How they are? I mean, there's some things that I go along with them with, as far as like trans stuff. I think we're going way too far. That I don't know where the line is, but things like marijuana use, even the gay marriage right stuff. I don't care if two people get married if that's what they want to call it. What's your thoughts on stuff like that?
Well, I can be a little center right on some issues, because I do understand at the end of the day that, of course, we are a fallen world. We're all sinners, and I try to be as non-judgmental about people as I possibly can be, lest I be judged. So where I come down on some of those things, I am obviously opposed to gay marriage, and I'm absolutely undeniably opposed to it in our churches. One of the positions that I take on that is you do have civil unions in America. And with that in mind, if two people want to join together in whatever capacity that looks like in a legal sense, that apparatus is already in place. But my basic thoughts are I don't want there to be a gay marriage ceremony within a church, because if you really want to be pragmatic about it, when two people get married, there are actually two weddings. There is the wedding that the state recognizes, and then there is the wedding that the Lord recognizes. Now, as you're well aware, in the state of Alabama, the marriage licenses went away a few years ago, so that relationship has changed just a little bit. But at the end of the day, the Lord is never going to honor a gay marriage. And so, in that sense, we're going to have coupling of same-sex partners, from a legal sense, no matter what we do. So keep it out of my church, and if you want to marry your cocker spaniel, marry your cocker spaniel, but I'm not going to acknowledge it. As
So
far as
your thing,
um,
I'm sorry, your thing is just the wording of it. If there was civil unions and you recognized by the state as far as taxes and that kind of stuff, you don't have a problem with that.
no, I don't, because there's really not much that can be done about it. And again, you do have people that have legal partnering, if you will. It's not really uncommon for even siblings to commingle their funds, particularly later in life. And so, from a biblical perspective, I'm adamantly opposed to it. From a legal perspective, I'm more of a live and let live kind of guy, but don't expect me to honor it.
Okay. And I'm sorry I cut you off. I didn't mean to use. I don't know what
No,
you.
since you had brought up marijuana, I just thought I'd go ahead and touch on that. The reality of it is with marijuana usage, if you want to look at it as though it was Colorado, obviously, I would be adamantly opposed to dispensaries, to the decriminalization of marijuana. People say, all the time, well, uh, it's not a gateway drug and it doesn't affect people's lives, and alcohol is legal and it's just a plant. Well, I've been pretty vocal about this on my program, because I have a past. I was a rough and tumble kind of guy early on in my days. And people say, oh, when they come up to me with, well, marijuana is not a gateway drug, my response to that was, well, it was for me. And although I didn't go completely off the deep end in my later teen years and early 20s, I did experiment with other things. And that's where I started. And so I'm adamantly opposed to it in that respect because I've been down that road and I understand. There is a lot of debate, obviously, about medical marijuana. Now, in disclosure, I have a mother who's 80 years old, and she's had multiple cancer treatments. She's very frail. She's fallen multiple times, has had many surgeries on her back, and she does receive medical marijuana. She resides in Florida, and she receives these cannabis gummies from her doctor and under the close supervision of her physician. So I don't support the use or sale of marijuana either publicly or privately. And I also don't support its legalization or, like I said, decriminalization. I do, however, understand that people with certain medical conditions, such as Alzheimer's, ALS, Crohn's disease, epilepsy, seizures, chronic pain, MLS, and the side effects of some cancer treatments can, in fact, benefit from the FDA approved cannabinoids, as well as what's called I believe it's a drobitanol, and that's actually marketed under a name by the name of Marinol. So under the close supervision of a doctor in the form of tablets or gummy bears for the purposes of easing chronic pain, I can support that.
Hey, you said something about a gateway drug, and I agree with you. Marijuana is a gateway drug. I same reasons what you said. When I was younger, I experimented with other things. But do you feel that our drug laws need to be revamped? I mean, because they seem so draconian. I know people who've messed up, have a possession and get a felony and are ruined for the rest of their life. It seems like we're creating a revolving door for this.
Some years ago, as my seminar career was really beginning to take off, I joined an organization called Toastmasters International. Now, Toastmasters teaches you public speaking skills. Matter of fact, until the COVID thing hit, I still attend the Toastmasters meetings. I, at one point in time, elevated to the state of Alabama. Portions of Mobile weren't in this particular district, but I was the district or the state of Alabama director of public relations. I would go around doing competitions, and I spoke all over the time for this Toastmasters organization. And one of the things that I began doing as part of that was I would actually go and speak in prisons. And I've spoken at Kilby Correctional Center. I've spoken, St. Clair County. But one that I also spoke at was Easterling, which happens to be in Clio, Alabama, or Clio. I'm not even sure how they pronounce it, which happens to be George Wallace's hometown.
Yeah.
And I was down at Easterling, and I was actually speaking. I was doing a keynote address for a graduating class within the prison of people that had gone through drug rehabilitation programs in this class. And I had no idea how many people would be in attendance. I'm thinking, 10 of these inmates. There must have been 100 in the room. Their families were there. They got diplomas, the whole 9 yards. But I met inmate after inmate after inmate that had done several years in Easterling for relatively minor drug offenses or even possession. And to answer your question, yeah, I think they can be draconian. I'm a kind of person that is, big into rehabilitation. And I don't necessarily think that incarcerating 20, 21-year-old kids for a minor possession of marijuana is the appropriate approach. There were people in this prison and in this particular graduating class who, as you point out, had their lives completely upended because, they were in a possession of a joint, or just caught with a small amount of this stuff. Now, again, I'm not for decriminalization or legalization, but I think that some of our approaches, as you point out, can be draconian, and it puts undue burden on the prison system. It destroys lives, and I didn't really see a whole lot of benefit. And I spoke to so many parents at this particular event that were explaining to me what kind of young men, and these were primarily men, because there was a male prison, obviously, what kind of young men that had been wards of the state during this period of time, and how they too thought it was excessive.